We're talking about the hemispheres and split brain procedures today. As you already know, your brain is divided into two unequal sides. We refer to these as hemispheres, and most of our senses are contralateral. That is to say, the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body and vice versa. We'll be looking more specifically at this in just a minute, but there are responsibilities that the left hemisphere has predominantly, such as language, for example, and there's responsibilities that the right hemisphere has predominantly. This has led to the pop psychology myth that left-handed people are more creative and musical, and that right-handed people tend to be more logical. That's not true at all. The fact of the matter is, left-handed people are better at everything. Just kidding. I just happen to be left-handed. No, I'm sure all of you have heard this left-brainedness and right-brainedness. None of that's true. Now, there is specialization of the hemispheres. We're going to talk about that. But in terms of its impact on personality, there really is no relationship there at all. So our two hemispheres are connected by this superhighway of neurons known as the corpus callosum. And so in this image here, you can see that you have all of these lines connecting both hemispheres. Though each hemisphere is working and talking to the other hemisphere all the time. And so really, any activity that you do, you're engaging both sides of your brain, and the corpus callosum is the superhighway that houses those neural pathways. When you have a case of a split brain patient, for specific medical reasons, we may separate the two hemispheres. That is done by either removing, or in most cases, simply cutting through the corpus callosum and interrupting those neural passages. So the person most responsible for this type of brain science, and specifically this medical procedure, this surgery where the corpus callosum is severed, is Roger Sperry. And he is a neurologist working specifically with people who suffer from epilepsy. And he realized that people who are experiencing really, really severe epileptic seizures that do not respond to medication and other forms of treatment can actually be improved through the severing of the corpus callosum. If you divide the hemispheres, you actually can put an end to, in the most extreme cases, epileptic seizures. And some of these patients, they're experiencing, in some cases, hundreds of mini seizures every single day. The damage to the brain would be obvious. And so, while an extreme medical solution, it has proven to really be effective in terms of treating severe epilepsy. Now, the result then is you have an individual who has two brain hemispheres that no longer talk to each other. And so, in the simplest terms, you could almost look at it as a person who has two brains. And what we find then is patients who split brain patients are able to key us in on what are the responsibilities of each individual hemisphere. And what we find is that the hemispheres are highly specialized. Uh, the left hemisphere is mostly responsible for language, including written and oral. We already knew that areas like Wernicke's area and Broca's area, we already knew that there were language centers relegated to the left hemisphere. But through these split brain scenarios, we have come to learn that most of our language is localized in the left part of our brain. Our sense of time, rhythm, thought analysis, all of these things are primarily left brain processes. Now, let me reiterate, in a normal brain where the corpus callosum is intact, all of these activities are being performed with the help of both hemispheres. However, a majority of the work is being done in one hemisphere or the other. So language, time, that kind of thing, left side. Right side tends to dominate perception, visualization, especially spatial perception, the ability to recognize faces and patterns, emotions. That's actually very strongly located in the right hemisphere. So here's a simple little list of specialization of the two hemispheres. I'm not going to read this to you because I just talked through it, but you can see there is quite a difference in the two hemispheres. You can understand why people say, left-handed people tend to be more creative and musical and what have you, because it's the right brain that tends to control those types of behaviors. And the left brain tends to control mathematical calculations, logical analysis, that kind of thing. And because our brains are lateralized, because the right brain controls the left hand and the left brain controls the right hand, we end up with this untrue theory that left-handed people are more creative and right-handed people are more analytical. So let's take a look at the impact of split brain surgery. From this image, you can see your left hemisphere is responsible for visualizing what is seen in your right spatial field. Okay, so if you just follow the lines from the back of these eyeballs, the retinas here in this image, they cross through the corpus callosum, and then the information that's being sent from those retina are being organized by the opposite hemisphere. So what you see with your left eye, you make sense of in your right hemisphere. What you see with your right eye, you make sense of with your left hemisphere. Now, of course, in a normal patient, their brain then talks to each other, and you get the full spectrum of what you're seeing. Now, for a person with a divided brain, a split brain, their two hemispheres aren't talking to each other. And so one hemisphere is seeing half of the image, the other hemisphere is seeing the other half of the image, and they're not able to put the picture together entirely. And so what ends up happening then is, if a person with a split brain is shown an image and let's say a pencil is placed in just the left visual field, that means the right brain is going to see that image, but not the left brain. If the left brain is responsible for communication, for talking, then what happens is the person who sees it with their right brain is asked, "What do you see?" And they can't answer the question because it's the left brain that's responsible for communication. So If you want someone with a split brain to be able to say what they see, they have to see it with their left brain. If they don't see it with their left brain, they can't say it. Now, what's interesting is if you show someone in their left field of vision a pencil and you ask them, what do you see? Their right brain can't say what it is. But if you put a pencil in their left hand and say, draw what you see, with their left hand, they can easily draw a pencil because their right brain controls their left hand and their left hand draws a pencil. Does that make sense? I'm going to link a video on split brain cases. I'll put the link up on Schoology so you guys can watch it. It's truly fascinating and it does a better job of showing you what I'm saying. So the patient is unable to say out loud what they see with the right side of their brain, like I just kind of said, because the speech control center, language, is housed in their left hemisphere. Now, if you can do the same kind of experiment without, not visually, but tactily. So if you put an apple, or let's stay with a pencil, if you put a pencil in the left hand of a split brain patient, their right brain is going to make sense of that object. They're going to feel it in their left hand, and it's going to be the right hemisphere of their brain that receives the information from that left hand and makes sense of it. And if you ask, what's in your hand, because their language is in the left hemisphere and their right hemisphere isn't talking to their left hemisphere, they can't tell you what's in their hand. If you put something in their right hand and say, what's in your hand, they'll go, oh, it's pencil, because their left hemisphere brain is controlling that right hand. The information from their right hand is being sent to their left brain, and with ease, they can say, I'm holding a pencil. Okay, lastly, we talked a little bit about the endocrine system last week. There's just a couple of quick things I want to go over. This is just sort of a little caveat. Remember, the endocrine system is controlled by your hypothalamus, and your hypothalamus communicates with your brain through the secretion of hormones. Hormones are like snail mail. They're the slow way of exciting the brain into doing something, and they're controlled by the hypothalamus. Oh, I think that's all I have. That's honestly all you really need to know. We already talked about this, but hormones help organize the nervous system and activate certain body behaviors like eating, drinking, sexual arousal, that kind of thing. Okay, great. That's all I have for you. Your job now is to complete your review guide for your brain test, and then go on to Schoology and take your big brain quiz. Remember, you can use the review guide, but nothing else. You got 45 minutes, so please keep it under that. This is, honor system, but I know I can trust you guys. I also know that if you cheat, I will find out, and I will feed you to, well, it depends on which class you were in, either sharks or animals at the zoo. So good luck. Enjoy your break. Please do your quiz before break starts so that you're done and you can just enjoy it. I'll see you guys.